Hello, and welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast. This is episode 6, and today we're speaking with Amy Tarlow-Lewis, who is the founder of Littleton Community Farm.
Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast with Jen Klein, a certified fundraising executive and philanthropic entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you to make a difference in your community and our world. Jen believes all acts of kindness matter, and this show is designed to help you take pride in your everyday actions of improving the lives of others and making a change in the world. Now, here's Jen.
Amy, I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're an inspiration for founding a nonprofit, and I want to hear about what Littleton Community Farm does.
Yeah, so Littleton Community Farm is a nonprofit in Littleton, Mass, and we are dedicated to education and hunger relief. And we are located at New England Forestry Foundation here in Littleton. We have our lease. Our lease is about 3 acres. They have a few meadows, which we occupy.
What a wonderful way to coordinate with another nonprofit. How did that happen?
So I was very fortunate. I am friends with a gentleman in town who sits on the board of Littleton Conservation Trust, and he had approached me and said that they would be really interested in talking about us having their farm with them because they had these unoccupied meadows, and it would be a really good partnership because both New England Forestry Foundation and Littleton Community Farm have some overlapping missions. We're dedicated to farming and preserving farmland and adding farmland to the agricultural inventory of land. But they are also very interested in preserving forests and protecting forests from development. And we're both interested in educating the public about the importance of forests and farmland. So there's a lot of really great overlapping missions between the two of us.
I love that it was also another nonprofit that introduced you. It really shows the collaboration in your town. Can you tell me what are the resources you tapped into in your town?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So we are really tapping into a variety of resources. So just to go back to our land, so New England Forestry Foundation has about 110 acres of land, and some of the trails that are through that property are owned by New England Forestry Foundation, but some of them are also owned by Littleton Conservation Trust. So by occupying that space, we're sort of a community farm within a community forest, which is really great because we want to be as accessible and transparent to the public as possible. So we have a close relationship with both of them. Additionally, the back end of the property is Long Lake, which is a lake that a lot of homeowners live around, but there's also a spot where people can swim at. So we even have a few CSA members who will kayak from their home over to the woods, leave their kayak, and then walk through a trail to come pick up their CSA and then go back home. So there's a lot of great foot traffic using low carbon footprint methods.
Sounds really fun, very relaxing and enjoyable.
It is. It's a really relaxing, kind of a special little place. It's off the road, it's quiet, peaceful. It's really a little hidden jewel in the woods.
What other networks did you tap into to create this farm? Who were some of the other founders with you, or was it only you, or who were early board members?
The first step that I took in organizing was someone said, well, you have this really great idea. You should have a meeting, try to get people to come to it. So I said, okay. So I actually reserved a spot in the library, and I had contacted a bunch of my friends who I knew would support me. And then I had sort of networked through town and asked people like, who do you know who really believes in farming? Who do you know who really believes in food access and converting land back into agricultural use? And people sort of gave me their names. And then I just started calling people, and I said I was going to have this meeting at the library in August. And I booked a room, and I showed up, and so did another 18 people. And there was a lot of enthusiasm and encouragement. And so that was sort of the first really lift that I got, that this was a good idea that people would support. And then I continued to sort of have meetings, and then people sort of whittle them themselves down, and then you end up with this core group. And we said, let's do it. And so we formed a board. And so there was a few people, including Jen, who joined as our first fundraising director. And then we started talking about writing a vision, writing a mission. One of my friends who had joined, Jen Brownson, is an attorney. And so she helped me walk through the process of filing our articles of incorporation and doing all that legal paperwork that we needed to do. Someone else who wasn't a board member but was coming regularly had said that you need to file for your 501c3 and sort of gave me the directions on how to get that going. At the time, there was a federal shutdown. So it actually took about 1.5 years for us to get our 501c3 status. We also had to raise money within the group to do those filings because all those filings do require a fee. So everyone just sort of put money out on the table. Those were our first donors. Through a friend of a friend, they helped me with the 501c3 paperwork because at the time it was about a 32-page application, which had a lot of questions that I didn't even know how to interpret or answer. And so this person came to my house, and within 3 hours we had filled it out. The IRS is actually a really great resource because they have some of the basic boilerplate language that you need. So for example, a conflict of interest, they have one that you can just use and run with. Again, the library was a really great resource for me. Our library in Littleton is wonderful. And so we started a seed library, which is essentially a seed bank. So we chose seed varieties of vegetables and flowers that were easy to save and easy to grow. And so what happens is people come to the library in the spring, they check out their seeds, they bring them home, they start their gardens. And at the end of the season, they save their seeds. So for example, with beans, you would pick beans that tasted really good or really grew vivaciously, were disease resistant. And then you would dry the beans out, and then you would collect the seeds, and then you'd return them to the seed bank. So it's a loop. And when you're selecting seeds, you are essentially strengthening the local seed variety, which is really important, especially with climate change, because some vegetables are doing better than other vegetables, depending on where you're growing in the country and what the climate is like and how the climate is changing. So we're strengthening our own local variety of food, which is important.
That's terrific. Just to recap, what I heard you say is you had 3 nonprofits support each other. Then you had public entity support you. Then you had town residents of at least 18 of you. And I'm curious if you've had business support as well.
So the first business support that we received really was to start the seed library. So a lot of seed companies are really excited about seed libraries. The Littleton Seed Library was actually the second seed library in Massachusetts. The first one was in Concord, of which we modeled ours off of. But there's been a sprouting of seed libraries happening across the country. There's a really significant one out in California that was really the model for everybody. And seed companies were really excited that this was happening. And so they were donating seeds to these nonprofits and these libraries so they could get them started. So we received a lot of free seeds. And then we had people buying seeds for us as sort of donors, which was really wonderful. It was later on when we started really trying to fundraise that we would approach local businesses for their support. And then we started running events, and then we'd ask them to be our corporate sponsors.
How long ago has Littleton Community Farm started from the first visit you had to with those 18 people to today?
Yeah, so the idea really started in 2013. The first meeting that I held was in August or September of that year. 2015 was our first growing season. So as of this year, or last year rather, was our 6th growing season. So we're moving into our 7th growing season. The first 2 years between 2013 and 2015 were really critical years because we were really spending the time organizing ourselves and fundraising, filing the appropriate paperwork with the state government and the federal government that we needed to do. Jen was really critical in helping us raise those initial dollars because no one who was either volunteering to help out or is currently on the board had significant fundraising experience. And so she really helped us map out how go through the process, which is really important because farming is really challenging to get into. The two biggest challenges of getting into farming are access to capital and access to land. And within 2 years, we had cracked that nut, which is pretty impressive. We were really fortunate to have New England Forestry Foundation be so excited to receive us on their land. And Jen was really helpful in getting, the first $25,000 raised so that we could do all the basic necessary, buy the most basic things that we needed to get the farm up and running, like compost and seeds and, hoses, basic tools that we needed. We were also really fortunate at the time to have a woman by the name of Brittany Sidway Obersteiner, who was the farm manager at the time at Medway Community Farm. And so she was hooked up with a bunch of area farmers. And so she was really critical in helping us get some really critical large pieces of equipment that we needed to get going, like some plows, so we could plow through the field and get it up and running. And just really helping us network because we didn't have a tractor, we didn't have any heavy equipment. And so she was really critical in helping us get the field ready to grow. She was also really critical in helping us hire our first farmer so we could start farming and writing that job description and helping us interview the farmer so we could get the right person.
One of the things I like to encourage my listeners about is to do anything they can with however much time they can. And hearing the story of how people just pitched in from giving you free law advice or helping steer you in the right direction with whatever you needed, really shows the strength of your community, particularly you were a crucial piece, not with just the idea and the time you committed to it, but also your network. And that's something we heard about from our first guest in episode 2, Tanya Gauthier, who said that she just really relied on her network. And it's so important to show up. That is what we heard from John Fisher in our last episode. And I know from experience, I made a lot of great friends. You and I would never
Absolutely.
have met. And so it's a wonderful community, like opportunity to make friends and enjoy that camaraderie and that excitement. And I know that first time you opened up in that growing season was a real celebration, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. And there are so many benefits to being involved in a nonprofit, whether you start one, whether you donate to one, whether you give them your time and your energy and your thought. For me personally, I'm so thankful that I did this, that I believed in myself to do this, and that I really leaned in hard with it because I met people like Jen, who I never would have met before. I do have 2 children, but they're several years older than Jen's, and just because of the age gap, I probably would have never have met her. I have become friends with people who are old enough to be my parents, who I've become friends with. And again, I never really would have reason to have met them before. So I've really gotten to know a really wide swath of people of my community. And I continue to meet people in my community, which I really enjoy doing. I have really great conversations, and really my focus of my work is to really do the fundraising, but I do spend a little bit of time on the farm. I do make it out there to do some volunteer work, like weeding, for example. It's just really exciting. And I really can't, encourage people enough to lean in their network, grow their network. It's also really important to say thank you over and over and over again to people for their time and their energy. And how their effort and time or money has really made a difference and an impact that keeps people engaged and coming back. And quite honestly, I am so thankful for everyone who's ever contributed to this organization at any level, whether they donated $5, whether they've donated $2,000, whether they volunteered for 2 hours, whether they volunteer for 30 hours a year. Without them, the farm would absolutely not be where it is. I guess there's that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to get there, go together. And going together really is the best way to go. It's actually interesting. I started this farm, but I actually have no farming experience. have no gardening experience. My husband actually asks me not to touch the plants. The only really experience I have is eating vegetables and cooking vegetables. So, I think it's been really important for me to recognize where my expertise in my wheelhouse lies, what are the boundaries of my knowledge, and really seeking out the people who can fill in those gaps and really being willing to listen to them, respect their experience and knowledge, and take it on board and to find a way to integrate it, because there's no way you can know everything about everything. And that's been a really critical piece to getting this organization up and going, because it's a collective effort.
I want to just take a commercial break. I want to share with my listeners about something that I did so that they can be inspired to be volunteers and donors in their communities to both individuals and nonprofits. So we'll be right back. Let's take a break to talk about a company that I'm passionate about, Stella and Dot. Stella and Dot creates personalized jewelry that boosts your love of life. Stella and Dot is committed to sourcing and producing jewelry and accessories in a legal, ethical, and socially responsible way. Beautify your life and buy you or your loved one a beautiful personalized piece of jewelry. Go to JennKleinPhilia.com for more information. That's JennKleinPhilia.com.
You are the kind of person who wants to improve the lives of others, but you need to take pride in your everyday actions. You Are a Philanthropist believes that every act of goodwill deserves to be recognized as philanthropy. Each individual action you take impacts another's life. Believe that what you do makes a difference. So call yourself a philanthropist and start a ripple effect of generosity that boomerangs back to you. Go to youareaphilanthropist.com/shop. Style your outside to match your inside. Choose a t-shirt, hoodie, or bag to show how much you love giving to others. That's youareaphilanthropist.com/shop.
We're back. I want to thank you again for being here. And today we're speaking with Amy Tarlow-Lewis, who is the founder of Littleton Community Farm. So what is your background in? Did you work for a nonprofit before? Tell us about your career.
Yeah, so my undergraduate work is from Simmons College in Boston. I went there when it was an all-women's college, and I got my undergraduate degree in economics. Never really planning to be an economist, but I felt like it was a really good balance of qualitative and quantitative skills. So math skills, a lot of writing, a lot of reading, which is the direction I took my economics degree in. And then I ended up actually in human resources. I managed large-scale staffing projects. So I worked for Ronstad, which is essentially a staffing company. One of their largest clients is Bose here in Massachusetts. And so I sat on site at Bose and I managed one of their large-scale staffing projects. So every year they scale up their hiring to put seasonal staff in all their stores across the country. So I managed that project. It's obviously remote, it's all across the country. And so I managed all of those pieces and helped develop the pieces for that program. And then I had our two kids and I left the workforce for a while. And then I really just felt like I, wanted to do something. And I kind of saw this opportunity to create this nonprofit because I feel very strongly in preserving land, preserving agricultural land, putting more agricultural land back into the agricultural inventory. And I really believe in equity, whether it's food access, education, healthcare. And because Littleton is about 45 minutes west of Boston, and it is still very much an agricultural town. We have 3 really large farms here in town and a lot of conservation land. There's really a lot of open space. And so when I looked around my community, I just saw this opportunity to create a community farm. There are several community farms here in Massachusetts, and I had always been enamored with them. And I just really saw this opportunity to create one here in Littleton that would service people in Nashua Valley and in Lowell. because there was sort of a hole here. So I had kind of identified that space that I felt like our community could fill. And that's how I started.
Amy, it's really so inspirational, and I really enjoy hearing all of our guest stories about how $5 makes a difference. 1 hour makes a difference. Just getting started, just showing up, not having the skills, never doing this before. This is really attainable. And sometimes, once it's up and running and it seems so successful and you've been doing it for years, it makes it sound like it was easier than it was. And I know there was a struggle there. And
Absolutely.
I'm curious, what would you say to our listeners who maybe have thought about their dreams for creating a nonprofit or have thought about doing more volunteer work in their local communities? What would you say to them if they're just thinking about doing something like this?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So I think it's really important for people to really evaluate what they feel they can give and what their time and their energy and their resources are. When they look out into their community or the greater, wider community, however they feel they want to identify that, and really think about what problem they see in the community that they would like to solve and change. And that's a very personal decision. There are, so many amazing nonprofits out there. And I think you need to align yourself with what you think is really that you're passionate about, because there are so many problems out there that need to be solved. And then I would really think about how you feel that you can best make change to that problem that you see. And so for some people, they have additional monies that they feel that they can give, and that is the best way for them to make change. And for other people, they may feel that their time is the best way of making change. And I think that's also a very personal decision. And from there, I would really think about, if you're going to donate money, is to just spend some time researching organizations and find ones that are impactful, that are using donor money well, that are really making change in some way. And then if you are to consider volunteering your time, I would really look around and see what organizations are aligned with your passion and your interest, and do some research on them, and then contact them and ask them, are they looking for volunteers, and what areas do they need volunteers? And then at that point, you can tell them if, you feel that you might be a potential match for them, and start that conversation. In terms of starting a nonprofit, I think some nonprofits can start very small and stay very small for a long period of time, and you can keep it very manageable. And some nonprofits, the work just requires just to it just gets very big very quickly. I think you need to really evaluate that, because it is a huge time commitment. It is a lifestyle choice. It was, and I will admit, it was very difficult to do this with 2 young children. When I started, I had one kid still in diapers, one kid just wearing night diapers. I had a husband that worked, long, demanding hours. But I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And so I felt like I had the time, but juggling all of those pieces was honestly pretty stressful at times. I'm going to, fully admit there were times that I cried and times that I laughed. But you have to really be willing to sort of ride all those waves and sort of see it through.
I love your advice. And one of the things I ask my guests is, what is your vision for a better world?
Wow, that's a really big question. So in terms of Littleton Community Farm, the vision of our farm is that through our food donation programs, that we are improving community health, so that we are putting more healthy, nutritional food into the community, particularly the communities that are underserved and for people of color, and that we are, contributing towards decreasing diabetes, decreasing obesity, improving cardiovascular health, improving overall well-being, that if there are people who are already buying vegetables, that we are supplementing those vegetables and therefore decreasing their grocery dollars. For people who are underserved, who are struggling with income, that's a huge money saver for them as well. The main driver of food insecurity in this country happens to be income. It's not war, it's not political strife, it's income. So by putting more food into the community, we are essentially supplementing people's income. And so I think those are the changes that this organization seeks to achieve.
That's terrific. And I want to end today with thanking you for serving your community. Thank you for sharing with our listeners.
It's a joy to do it.
Thank you, Amy. I think that's such a good point. I do talk about how giving is selfish, and it's kind of built into the human innate qualities where it feels good to give. I'm sure you can agree.
Yes, absolutely.
So I always like plugging a nonprofit at the end because I really get excited when people join with you. So if anybody is interested in donating to Littleton Community Farm, seeing more hunger relief in their community, if you would please go to littletoncommunityfarm.org.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We would welcome anyone to come join us.
Thank you so much, Amy.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
This year, I lost weight through a nutrition program called Arbonne International. Arbonne uses products that are good for your body and eliminate 2,000 toxins. They have nutrition and skincare products to help your body feel the best. More importantly, why I'm talking with you about this today is because they're certified B Corp, which means they put people, planet, and purpose over profit. They donate and created a foundation called the Flourish Foundation that gives to children's mental health programs all over the world. If you'd like to hear more about Arbonne and how it can help you feel your best self and you can feel good about supporting, go to JennKleinPhilia.com. That's JennKleinPhilia.com.